Everybody, we're back again on the grounds of the Noman School of Visual Effects inside the green screen hangar for day 3 of the inaugural ZBrush Summit. It's been a cavalcade of an event over the course of 2 days. We've seen some incredible presentations, artist demos, panel discussions. Today I have the pleasure of sitting again with an old-time friend and colleague here in the ZBrush universe, none other than the point pusher himself, Danny Williams. Big ups.
Hello.
So it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thanks for sitting with me.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I appreciate even being invited to this thing.
You've been doing great.
Thanks.
Busy, right?
Super.
Is what we say. So the first question right out the gate, everybody knows at this point, there's no question you have a prolific body of work.
Thanks.
How do you stay motivated?
I wish I could stop more. I don't know. It's an obsession. It's you know, for me, the base is drawing. Everything started from drawing. And when I first got into 3D, I used some really arcane 3D programs I won't use to date myself.
Right.
And then eventually Maya for a long time. And I was very conscious of the disconnect between what I like to do most and what I was doing. And when ZBrush hit, the thing that struck me the most is like it was drawing in 3D. And that was the thing that I loved the most about it. I could draw something, but then I could turn it and judge the drawing from a new direction. And I'm totally convinced that that accelerated my learning of how to make shapes. Because I know for me, career-wise, there was a time before I used ZBrush, and I know the kind of work that I was getting. And then after I started using ZBrush, I just think the cycles that you can go through, right? We're all on this treadmill trying to get better.
Yeah.
And it's like the cycles you go through, you know, try, fail, try, succeed, look back later on and go, that wasn't a success, that was a failure. And you do it and repeat. Because I could get through so many more pieces quickly with ZBrush, it just accelerated my learning and just helped me professionally, artistically, and it's going to sound strange, but spiritually, you know. It's my favorite tool to work in, you know?
I think you said spiritually, you're tapping into something that has not been discussed very much over the course of a couple of days, but I think it's valid because in some way you're kind of like elevating yourself to a whole other level in conjunction with having this tool available. So the tool is actually facilitating. In some cases, it's like, you know, you find a pencil or a piece of paper you like to use. It's not dissimilar at all from a tacit sort of approach. You know, you're like, hey, wait a minute, I have friends who use like a particular type of canvas or a panel. You know, a friend of mine was saying the other day he uses these like ampersand panels, and I'm like, you know, why do you use those? He's like, I just like the way that the paint flows across it, you know. Yeah. And so the same thing is true. Yeah, he's arriving at new conclusions because of certain things. You
feel like you're getting someplace, and like for all of us, you know, you have a certain sensibility. The way you understand a shape is different than the way I understand the same exact shape.
That perception of it.
Yeah, and when you look at an artist, when I look at like Dominic Quick or Grassetti or any of these guys, and I look at what they're doing, I'm not admiring their ability only. I'm admiring their ability to express their understanding, and it resonates with me as well. And it resonates with a bunch of other people. On a very simple level, we go, oh, that's what an eyebrow looks like, or that's what a nose looks like, you know, but they've tweaked it and changed it and made it their own, and you're resonating with that in a weird way, you know what I mean?
There was some vibration that is like, you can say, hey, wait a minute, that is like, it's very clear.
We're getting super new age. School of Visual Effects.
Because this is a conversation that happened yesterday with those fellas as well, and at the same time, off camera, there was a lot of conversations about this thing. It was like, you know, there was a lot of talk of music and art, and it was all sort of this amalgam of this feeling, and I guess it's really, we're just capturing vibrations and visually representing them in a way, and we have a tool that is, everyone's using the same tool, but they're representing something in a different way. Yeah. You know, like you said, you're looking at an eyebrow, and we saw that with the Disney presentation as well. There was, you know, Dylan was like showcasing an eyebrow, like, you know, they were breaking down how they went through various iterations of saying, well, this could be this way, or this could be this way. Right. And it really was just a matter of capturing the right energy, you know, and they all have different, there was 4 people, you know, involved in that project yesterday that were discussing it, but I think that the way someone represents something is indicative of the emotional connection they had at the time, you know, just to stay in that vein.
You look at the people who are at the top of, you know, what we do, all the way from games to visual effects to, you know, to film, to even non-digital, people who are sculpting toys or clay figures, you know, Jordan Shell, guys like this. You
Yeah.
look at what they're doing, and part of what they're doing is capturing the idea behind something and then pushing that idea out to you through the work. This guy's really grumpy and angry. All right, so we're gonna treat him like this.
They exaggerate something.
And, yeah, it's what you exaggerate that really comes through. You know, so
that's that personal touch. You know.
Yeah, for sure. But having, you know, you might not construct a sentence to say the exact same thing that I'm going to say the way I would, and I wouldn't do it the way you would. And some of that is just personality, upbringing, and just exposure to different things and all that. So ZBrush is, for me, one of the tools that's kind of like that, where it's like it helps me figure out something I want to say, and then I can say it really quickly. Now, even when people are a little more cynical and they go, you know what, I'm just going to make something that looks badass, right? I've worked with a ton of people that are like that. I just want to make something that's totally badass in games or in film. I just want to make something that's totally charming, right?
Right.
So even when you have those moments, what is it that you're trying to capture that says badass? What is it that you're trying to capture that says, oh, totally charming or graceful or finesse? It's a struggle to learn how to do that.
That anchor or that root, you're looking for that root, you know, like that root note. You're like, this will be the key of.
Yeah,
you know.
and I'm still on the path of trying to learn how to do that, you know, and I think everybody is. And if you have a tool that lets you fail a lot, often, and fast, I think that's the best way to do it. So in a weird way, thank you for the failures. So
he's thanking me. I'm thanking him. I don't even know what to say to that. I thank you. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, but thank you. I mean, this is you actually have a long, storied career thus far, and you've had the pleasure of working with some really gifted people. Let's talk about the early days. I mean, some heavy hitters being there to inspire and to influence you really early on. You know, you're doing your thing with Dreamworks and such these days, but before all of that, there's a story that goes on. I don't know if you guys know this, but you tell us about it a little bit and where it all kind of began and some of the influence that.
Sure, I was in college, and there were a bunch of movies that came out, Jurassic Park and things like that, and I was like, that's cool, but it's science. And then I saw a Toy Story, and I was like, oh my God, I want to do that, you know. And I didn't know we had a graphics department at my school. And I went there. My friend Danielle Cambridge, hi Danielle, if you ever see this, she was working in the graphics lab, and I saw her in the art building, and I just wanted to be an art teacher because I loved art, and I just wanted to.
Oh, you are.
Doing art in a weird way, yeah. So I was just trying to learn to draw and paint, and then I saw her in the art building, went down, saw what she was doing. Was totally infatuated, begged my way past a whole bunch of prerequisites, fell in love with it, spent all my free time there, and Danielle was ahead of me, graduated. She called me during winter break. She was working at Blue Sky, and she said, you want to come in and get a tour? And I said, yeah, sure. And I walked in, and I had never been exposed to anything like that, and I just straight up told them, I'll sweep the floors here if you let me.
This is a smart man.
And they called me the next day, and they were like, listen, don't tell Danielle, we're promoting her, and we need someone to take her spot. She was a technical assistant.
Sweet deal.
My whole job, it was the best job I ever had in my life, because my whole job was to just take these tape backups of the software that they wrote their rendering software to a bank. And then we had to film things out, like just basically take shots that we were doing for films or commercials, put them on these little tapes, get them into FedEx by the end of the day. But in terms of the art, I wasn't responsible for anything. But they just let me hang around with all these people, right? People like Mike DeFeo, Alex Levinson, Sean Cusick. These guys were just phenomenal, and Mike went on to be my boss for many years. And without him and his guidance, I'm not sure I would even still be doing
He's
this.
great. If you're watching.
Yeah, Mike DeFeo.
Hey.
Salute. Because he was so patient and just taught me so much of how I think comes from just lessons that he taught me. You know what I mean? So
he is a very patient guy.
Yeah,
and he's sort of really super laid back as well. For those people that have met him, they know that.
Absolutely. He was a wonderful, wonderful guy to work for.
Yeah.
And
really articulate when he's sort of describing something as well. I've had the pleasure of talking with him a few times.
And the acknowledgement, it's not a false humility or whatever. but the acknowledgement that you're just on a path and you recognize, you know what, I'm on a path, I'm going to fail, I'm going to get knocked back,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to get up and keep going, you know, professionally, artistically, all that kind of stuff. Just seeing the example that he set and how to deal with that stuff is phenomenal, you know. So
Yeah, that's great barometer, great sort of lamppost.
And then the rest is history. You know, I learned from those guys, and they had a very traditional kind of background, and it really shaped how I thought about, you know, this stuff. And there have been a ton of people over, you know, the years that I've been working professionally who have influenced me, but those guys were the seed. You know,
so we'll fast forward now to a different sort of question that deals with that kind of in a different way. At what point do you decide, because you're a hell of an illustrator?
Thanks, man.
Yeah, that's like I really dig your drawings. I think you know, if you haven't seen him, go check him out. This guy's a multi-talented guy. When do you decide that it's going to be a 3D sculpture or a drawing, or is it the sort of space where you decide like, okay, I'll do it?
So I've been doing a lot of like stuff for commercials and pitches, like outside of work, and
in your free time.
In
what we call the free time.
In the almost free time.
Yeah.
And what I do in those is I let the client dictate what they want.
Okay.
Sometimes you have someone with a very strong opinion, you know.
We've been hearing that over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, so they might want specifically 2D turnaround, and that's it, right? And you go, you might suggest at one point, you know, well, we could even do the turnaround in 3D, and we're sure that everything works. And they go, no, to sell this to whoever they're selling it to, they need a 2D turnaround. So, okay, you do that. And I don't think I think of in my head that it's all shapes, how you understand a shape to express it in 3D or 2D. And everything else is just mechanics, you know, like my favorite line always is we're not born knowing how to make the alphabet. And we pick up a stick and we make a mark and we keep trying to make that A over and over and over again. Then we do it with lowercase, then we do it with B's, and then when we get through the whole alphabet, upper and lowercase, then we have to learn to do it in cursive, right? And you're training your hand to make this shape that communicates an idea to someone. That's drawing. You know, writing is drawing. What happens if you take a kid and give them the expectation of having to make a cool motorcycle or a cool spaceship, and you tell them you're going to practice this every day for half an hour until you can do it just like nothing? They would do it. They would learn. You know? So it's just mileage. It's just learning. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's the way I think.
More and further to the point, there was a question towards the end of the presentation that dealt with 3D printing. Which has been a running theme across the entire weekend, which is a running theme in many conversations at the watering hole and the coffee machine as of late. Where do you see yourself going with that? And is that something that is happening more often for you, or more frequently you're taking some things and printing them more than...
So
have you got plans to bring these things into the 3D realm and have them as tangible things to hold?
Actually, yes. There's one thing I can't really talk about too much yet. I can say I hope to be working with some guys over at Mold 3D.
Okay.
I know those guys.
Hey, the guys at Mold 3D again.
Mold 3D, yeah. I know those guys, and they're great guys, and they're really passionate about this.
Okay.
And in the beginning, one of the guys, my buddy Robert, you know, we went
Vignon,
in.
right?
Vignon.
Yeah, Robert Vignon. Hey, Robert.
We went in with a few of us and bought a printer. We bought a Formlabs when they did the Kickstarter, and the printer came and I printed something on it. Robert printed something on it, and the other guys kind of shied away a little bit. And Robert just fell in love. He was just like, "I love this." He's like, "Can I buy you guys out? Because I want to take this thing home." So I was like, "All right, go." And you know, a few months passed, and him and Ed are working on Mold 3D, and seeing where they're taking it and how enthusiastic they are about it. And if you look at their website, just how many tutorials they have. There's so many little pitfalls that people don't consider. You just make something and you think, oh, well, I can just print it.
We're not at the one button solution yet.
And even then, even if unless we start making things that hover, there's a physicality in the real world.
Yeah, like a real world gravity.
Yeah, it's got gravity and weight, and you know, it'll tip over if it's not balanced well. So those guys have a lot of good information about that kind of stuff to get people ready to do that kind of stuff. So for me, I know I've got a few things in the pipe. I've printed before, and every time I've done it, I've liked the experience a little more.
Yeah.
The very first time I did it, I was like, oh, this is strange. Like, this doesn't look like what I thought it would look like, you know. But each time, it's been a little better. You know, so yeah.
There's that feeling of the holding something that you made, though. That's a trip, right? You're like, man, I can't believe this is now here in my hand. I'm
yeah,
like,
it's great. And
whole new reality.
And it's different, you know, because I've sculpted physically before too. It's different than sculpting something because you had the development, right? So your expectation, you left that thing on the desk, you know, yesterday, and you come in and you tighten it up, and now it's done. You've seen the progression. But it's like if you've ever seen like kids that go away to summer camp and they come back and they seem like so tall and whatever, and you're like, oh my God, because you haven't seen them in a while. That's what it's like when you get the print back. It's like, you know, you didn't get to see it really necessarily grow and progress. You just made it, and then you sent it out into the ether if you're using the service bureau. And
then it comes back and
you're like, oh snap, like you just get that sensation all at once.
I'm quite addicted to it, actually. We just printed something at the office, and I'm like, man, I can't wait to get on that again and like hit print again. So it keeps you awake at night. I'm like thinking about it every day. I'm like, I got to get back to my computer. You know, once this is over, I joked yesterday that I'd be painting my fence at my house, but aside from painting the fence on my front of my house, I'll be, you know, working on the other little head busts and get them printed.
Well, that's the thing. Before printing gets super fast, where it's just like, right now is a good time. You can just hit print and then go paint.
Paint the fence, right? I got to print and paint the fence at the same time. I better be careful. My wife might be watching. You can do it all. You're touching on some really important points with Mold 3D and the tutorials and the available educational resources. And you said earlier that your intention was to be a teacher, an art teacher. You're working with the ZBrush workshops. Can we expect to see more from you in the vein of learning and educational resources where I'm getting?
Yeah, right now I'm also teaching a live class at Studio Arts out in the San Fernando Valley, and that's going really well. It just started, and my current ZBrush workshops class is just ending. So there's a little bit of overlap, but one will end and the other will begin. And I just love this stuff, man. I love everything about it, you know. And I'm not a person that's like, you know, very high-minded, like, you know, well, I'm a teacher, you know, whatever. But really, to be completely blunt with everybody out there, I'm using teaching as a way to subsidize my artistic wishes, right? So it's like that character that I showed today.
It was a great character, by the way.
Thanks. The character I showed today, I just kind of had something churning in my mind. Oh, I just want to do a big brutish guy, you know, whatever. So when we talked about doing a new class, you know, you're coming up with the content for your classes. You know, it's not like we're teaching ancient Babylonian history and you have to stick to a specific thing, right?
Adhere to this like lineage.
You get to be creative. So I say, okay, well, at the end of this, I'd like to have a portfolio piece, hopefully, and then also I would like to, along the way, make it worth my while, you know, if I can show people how I'm making it, you know, and that's one of the things that I try to make unique about my classes. I show the failure too, because it's important for, you know, people to know you fail as well. So you show, you know, I tried this and it didn't work, and then I went down this other way, as opposed to a lot of folks that just only show you the success path. Yeah. You know, because that's not really legitimate. That's
certain disconnect from reality. Yeah, there's the tremendous disconnect.
And it disenfranchises the students a little bit, and, you know, they probably feel a little disheartened, like, I'm not getting this constant ping of success. Yeah. You know, so. Which
is unrealistic anyway.
Right.
To be honest. Yeah. I mean, there are layers of plateaus. Yeah. That you're going to arrive at and say, man, this is confusing. I don't know how to get through this, or, you know, man, I messed that up, or, you know, how do I fix that? So that's just a reality, I think.
I heard Glenn Keane say on a podcast once that he, you know, if he does one drawing out of 10 that he really likes, that it's rare, you know. And I thought, well, he's just being hard on himself. And then a few months later, I heard a quote by Frazetta that was almost a carbon copy. And a few months later, I heard another artist that I really loved, like, say almost the same thing. And I was like, wow, so these guys they fail too, you know, and it gives you permission to fail. And I think for whatever, if someone's taking a class with me, I'm not putting myself in the same class as those guys, but it's like, if you're taking a class and I'm instructing it, there's some level of, you know, where you're thinking, I don't think that you're taking the class like, oh, I already know more than this guy. So there's some level of, you know,
like a humility
up to you or whatever. Yeah. So it's important for them to know, like, hey, everybody, your favorite artists fail sometimes.
Absolutely.
They zig when they should have zagged, and you have to adjust. You know?
I think you know, I agree with you, because I was reading about this. I was talking about this with Kyle the other day as well. There was an Edward Hopper exhibit where there was all these drawings, these Edward Hopper drawings. This guy did like I think 50 drawings before he painted the self-portraits, you know, and it was like just going over and over and over again the same subject. It's like a maddening sort of experience, I think, and I think it's probably due to that kind of mentality, is to say no, it's not, you know, it's not what I like yet.
Yeah,
and then finally arriving
at fail early.
Yeah,
you know, that's the way.
Which is incredible, you know.
Yeah.
When you think about it, you're like the perseverance that some of these guys have. I think that, you know, you're demonstrating as well, is that there's this layer of perseverance, just continually. And that's what I was trying to get at with the output. It's just such a voluminous body of characters and little critters, man.
Well, that's the thing. It's like the sensation of having gone through. Like I know Ryan calls it the Ryan Kingsland calls it the Valley of the Suck.
Ryan,
you know?
the Valley of the Suck.
Yeah, the Valley of the Suck. But whatever term you're going to use for it, that moment when you're trying to overcome, you know, whatever adversity you're facing in the piece in front of you, professionally, personally, whatever. And it took a long time. And it's only in the last couple of years that I've really, really started to embrace this notion. You know, the getting knocked down by that always is rough, but the picking yourself back up, when you've done it once, you go, oh, I survived. That wasn't so bad. You know, and then that really is one of the things that fuels you. You've been through that a few times and you go, oh, yeah, this is that time again.
Yeah.
Get a cup of coffee and just kind of go through it.
Just kind of do your
just
thing,
do
man.
your thing,
Yeah.
and then you're out of it because you fought through it and you're intelligently evaluating the thing. You know, you're looking at it and saying, if it's failing, why is it failing? What do I want to change about it so it doesn't fail as much anymore?
Right.
And then that's how you climb out of it. And then now you're going past, you know, so that's kind of the way I try to treat all this stuff.
It's a very enlightening conversation we're having here. Any plans off and on the record, because we're in front of the camera, any plans to do any toys?
No.
Because you have a really great quality there.
Thanks,
the latest
man.
piece is like, you know, I would want it.
Thanks. Wow. Yeah. I'll send you the file. You print it. Yeah. But yeah.
Done deal, man. We got it.
I don't know.
I'm in line next.
I don't know any. I mean, there's a bunch of toy people that I look at. You know, you look at like Adam Bean and oh God, how am I forgetting your name? There's another toy guy that I absolutely love.
I want to say shout out to Joe Mena on the East Coast.
Yeah, Joe Mena.
If you're watching, man.
Yeah, he's amazing. There's so many amazing. You know, Dave Cortez is a friend of mine back in New York. Who does some amazing toy work. James Stapp is a friend of mine that does some amazing toy work.
Phil Ramirez out here who needs no introduction. I mean, big man Phil, if you're watching.
Yeah, and I mean, there's people like that, you know, I look at their work. And it's another, the guys in that sphere, they don't look at the work. And partially because realistically there's maybe a scarcity of work or whatever. But I think even past that, you know, you look at like a Tony Cipriano or people like this, they could sculpt, you know, a totally perfect Simpsons character, and then the next week turn around and do this veiny, hulked out Hulk.
Yeah, or like a Walking Dead character, you know, like bouncing back and forth between all things. You're like, what?
And they just see all of it as shape, you know, and it's like we have all these divisions in our head. Oh, I'm a 2D artist, or I'm a 3D artist, or I'm a this, or I'm a that. Just be an artist. Just be an artist and express how you express shape with whatever tool you just put in front of you that you can develop a level of mastery on.
You've said that numerous times. It's like not about being compartmentalized. I think there's, for the times that it's been, you know, known you for some years at this point, and some presentations that you've done that I've seen and that I've watched, you've oftentimes mentioned that the tool is just a tool and that you're trying to sort of communicate something, and I think that you're doing a great job of it.
Thanks, man.
You know, so what I'd like to sort of ask you as well is there really is no free time, is there?
No. So
the running theme is that there's no free time.
Yeah. Another Mike DeFeoism, something I could impart to people with kids, is try not to do your work at night.
I appreciate that. Where were you a couple weeks ago?
Yeah. So basically at night, that's family time. And then in the morning, usually I get up earlier than everybody else. And that's my time. And the other thing that does is if you're working somewhere and you're working at night on your own work, most of us are, that are working someplace. If you're working on your own work, you went to work and gave work like all of your energy, then you come home, and then now you're operating at a lower energy, you know, after work to do your own work. And if you kind of flip it a little bit, you're warming up for work, so work still gets a good amount of your energy, but you're at your peak, right? And it does take a little while to get used to, especially if you're not a morning person, but it's a much better way to do it schedule-wise. And then you're not shorting your family because at night you have the whole night with them, you know what I mean, when you come home from work. And when they're sleeping, you're sacrificing a little bit of sleep, but for me, it's been a great way to find balance, and my wife, Hazel, Gabe, Tori, Ashley, I love you guys.
What a good guy, man.
Yeah, I love
you all
so much. They support me so much. They know I love this stuff.
That's a sweet deal.
Yeah,
you're a sweet guy.
Yeah.
This guy. Well, I'm being given the sign from behind the camera that it's time. Don't go to sleep yet. All this talk of sleep. It's early in the day on day 3 of the Pixelogic ZBrush Summit, live from the Noma School of Visual Effects. Once again, on behalf of all of us and Danny Williams, we'll take it back to the main room. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks, guys.